Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Kudzu, privet, Bradford Pear. They are non-native invasive plants that have gotten out of control. Today we're going to talk about what makes an invasive plant. Also, we'll show how to take cuttings from annuals to save them for next spring. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Joellen Dimond. Joellen is the Director of Landscape at the University of Memphis, and Dr. Lelia Kelly will be joining me later. All right, Joellen.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about invasive plants, right? Always an interesting conversation, right?
It is very interesting. And let's start out with a definition. I mean, what is an invasive plant? Okay. It is a plant that causes some kind of ecological or economic harm in a new environment where it's not native.
Okay, where it's not native.
Where it's not native. Now, invasive plants are capable of doing quite a few things. They cause extinction of native plants and animals. They also reduce biodiversity in an area. And of course, they compete with native organisms for the limited resources that are there. And they alter habitats. So you don't really think about it, but we're going to talk about enough that maybe people will start thinking about, the plants that they buy.
Okay.
Of course, plants with the highest invasive potential. They are prolific seeders.
Of course.
They are vigorous growers. They adapt well to any different kind of environmental conditions to grow in, which sounds like what? A desirable plant that we all want in our gardens, right?
It sounds like something you would want.
Yes,
for sure.
That's all of the qualities that we would like to have for our own garden plant, which is how they've.
I would agree.
This is exactly what's happened. Now, if seeds of these plants leave the garden, by wind or wildlife, because sometimes they get attached to, wildlife that goes by them and then they get dispersed in another yard, or out in the woods, or by birds eating the seeds and then dispersing them other places. So, once they get out there, they may outcompete the native plants that are already there. An example would be the Bradford pear. That is the perfect example. Originally, it was given the patent, and now it is grafted. If you look at it, all Bradford pears are grafted onto a rootstock.
Okay.
And when the seeds, they're not real pears, but they're little seed pears. Mockingbirds, I've seen mockingbirds, they absolutely love them, and other birds eat them. They were supposed to be not viable, but unfortunately, they are viable once they go through the bird. And so if you go along I-40 during the spring when the pears are blooming, you can tell you're coming to an exit before you actually get to it, because they've planted Bradford pears there sometime because the birds have dispersed them, and now the wild pears are growing in that area and taking over the native habitat. Right. Pears it's a vigorous tree. These have thorns and everything else. So, I mean, it's not a desirable native plant.
Wow.
And so that is the worst one.
And the thing about the Bradford pear, though, in the spring, they can be so beautiful.
It's beautiful. Golly. Beautiful fall foliage.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Nice shape. But there are other varieties that, of course, that like the Cleveland, that would be much better to plant. It has the same attributes. Okay. Maybe not grow as vigorously or get as large, but those seeds are not viable. Gotcha. So, I mean, it's just the Bradford pear that has the bad reputation of having the viable seeds that get dispersed.
Wow. And then they break easily.
Yes. Yeah.
The limbs do.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's talk about the 6 top invasive plants in the United States. Okay. And we're talking the whole United States.
The whole United States, all right.
Kudzu.
Kudzu.
Number one.
Number one.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was introduced in the United States in 1876. It was for an ornamental or an forage and erosion control plant. 1 million acres was planted in the Southeast by the Soil Conservation Service in the 1930s and 40s. By the 1950s, it was determined that it was invasive. So it did not take long for us to figure out that that was an invasive species.
Took over pretty quick.
They took that because it can grow at a rate of 1 foot a day and 60 feet a year.
Think about that.
The vine takes over areas in the whole southeast.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like some odd creatures are out there because it just covers everything.
Trees,
yeah,
telephone
it takes over
farm,
smothers
equipment.
everything, and nothing can live under it. So
Man,
there you go.
Kudzu. All right.
The second one is Norway Maple.
Okay.
It was brought to the U.S. in 1756 from Europe by John Bartram, who is a famous plant explorer here in the United States.
Okay.
So he brought it over, but see, he did not know that it would end up out-competing the native maples in the Northeast and the Northwest.
Okay.
And that's where it's a very dense canopy. So not only does it take over and it's very aggressive compared to our other native maples, but it shades out the wildflowers that are underneath too because it's got a dense canopy on it.
Wow, how about that? And think about that time period again,
1756, yes.
Wow. Okay.
Long time ago.
Long time, okay.
Yeah. The third one, Japanese honeysuckle. I know we all know that, but it
All
was
over the place.
introduced in 1806 as an ornamental for erosion control. It's got a beautiful smell. In May around here, it smells beautiful out in the woods.
Yes.
But the seeds are dispersed by birds. It is now anywhere from Maine down to Florida, over to Texas, and in spots out west. It is an aggressive vine, and it can girdle. When it starts climbing trees and stuff, it'll girdle the trees. It shades them, and it kind of smothers other native plants. So that's
the honeysuckle, right?
The honeysuckle.
Of course, we remember that from our youth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, golly, how about that?
Yeah,
All
it smells beautiful, but it's a little aggressive. The fourth one is purple loosestrife. It's a beautiful perennial.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
It's
that.
got gorgeous flowers on it. It was introduced in the 1800s as an ornamental and for medical uses. It grows aggressively in most of the United States. It takes over wetlands. That's the problem. It's taking over wetlands. One plant can produce 2 million seeds.
Ouch.
And of course, the plant itself kind of grows like a bunch, and so it can grow outward at least a foot a year, especially in the wetlands where it really likes it.
Okay.
And then there's Japanese barberry.
Japanese barberry.
Japanese barberry.
We talked about that a time or two.
Yeah, we have. It was introduced in the 1800s as an ornamental garden plant to be a substitute for the European barberry that was found to harbor this black rust stem, a serious fungus disease of cereal crops. So what they did was they ended up substituting a bad plant for another bad plant.
Right.
This is its problem. It grows in deep shade, and it will produce dense thickets, especially in the Northeast.
Okay.
And its seeds are dispersed by birds. The very last one is one we all know, is English ivy.
It's ivy.
English ivy is considered one of the top 6 worst invasive plants in the United States. It was introduced from Europe in the 1700s as an easy-to-grow, evergreen ground cover.
Easy to grow.
Which it is.
It is.
But it's an aggressive vine that can kill trees by shading and girdling again.
Okay.
And the seeds, of course, are spread by birds.
So how can we make sure that we're not planting any of these non-native invasive plants?
Well, every area of the country has their own websites and their own lists. Tennessee, here we have 64 species on ours. You can visit our website and see a few of the websites you can visit to look in your area, or use your local state's websites to see if there are invasive plants that are for sale around your area. And just simply don't plant invasive species. Because we can control what's in our garden, what we plant there, but what we can't control is the animals, the insects, the birds, the wind that carries these plants to non-native areas.
That is good stuff. How about that? Interesting. So those are our top 6.
Those top 6.
All right, thank you much. Good information.
You're welcome.
This is classic European corn borer damage. When you see an even row of leaves, even row of holes in a leaf, that looks like a pretty large insect created those holes, but that's not the case. When this leaf was down here in the whorl, a very, very tiny corn borer drilled a hole, fed on this leaf. Now as the leaf grows, the hole gets larger. But a classic European corn borer damage, it's not a caterpillar that big, it's a little bitty tiny one in the whorl way down here in the very center of the plant.
All right, Dr. Kelly, easy techniques to root cuttings of some of our
Easy
favorite
and
annuals.
cheap.
And we like easy and cheap.
Exactly.
Right.
Do-it-yourself little projects that we can do. And every year we have favorite really pretty plants that are annuals that we get. And they do really good, and we always are like, oh golly, I wish I could keep that over the winter. But mostly we don't have places to bring in these giant big old plants like hibiscus, the big old tropical hibiscus, or the big pretty geraniums that have just done beautifully all summer, or big old impatiens or coleus, or some of these others that just really look nice, and we're like, oh gee, I wish I could keep that for next summer. And there's a way to do that. Most of these plants root really, really easily. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. So I think I'm going to demonstrate, I guess, first the coleus. And you know, of course you've got coleus, they're huge. You know, in your garden. So you just pick a terminal and you come in, and this little cheap knife, I was telling y'all they're really, really cheap. And I usually keep a bunch of these around the garden or different places where I can find them. But then you just go in and you just pinch that dude off or cut it off. And what you'll want to do is to, of course, remove these lower leaves, because when you put it in the soil, those are probably going to be below the soil level, and they're going to rot and fall off and not be a good thing. So actually, I just usually just take my fingernails and pinch those off. So see, now we've got a cutting of our little coleus. And what I do is I travel some, and you know, in motel or hotel rooms, in the bathroom, they always give you this shower cap, you know, and who wears the shower caps anymore? So I just have collected these. I've got like a gazillion of them at home. And what I do is I use these to make me a little mini greenhouse, and I'm going to show you that first.
How smart is that, though?
Yeah, really. So here's my impatiens that I have already stuck prior, about a week ago. I did these about a week ago. So they have, actually, I think a couple of them have roots, but I'm not going to pull it out. But I did this about a week ago, and I've just got regular soil mix in there. And then I just took some prunings from some of my plants and made me some, these are like my, what do we call that? The frame of my greenhouse. And of course, when you take a cutting, you want to, it's got no roots. So you've got to keep the moisture in the leaves until it can, so it won't dry out, as we talked in some of the previous segments about desiccation. So you take your shower cap and you just put it, and the nice thing about it, some people use like plastic bags, but see, I like the shower cap because it's
plastic.
So it keeps the moisture in, and there's your little greenhouse. And these things are usually root in a couple of weeks. You know, in at least a month, you've got a rooted cutting. And the way you can tell if it's rooted, let me just bring over one of these others. This is the coleus. Let's look at that one. Now this one I took a week ago as well, and I believe I pulled this one up just to see if it had rooted. And I believe I saw a root. Now if you want to test if one's rooted, you just tug on it a little bit. You don't pinch the stem, because if you grab it at the foliage up here, if you pinch it or break it off, it'll probably grow another leaf. It's not going to grow another stem if you pinch it too. And then I usually get something that I can go in and sort of prise it up instead of just pulling it.
Smart.
Yeah, so that way we're not breaking off.
Does it have?
Oh, well, no, I broke it off. I broke off my root. But if you look at it, you can see tiny little root initials, which are little bumps all along the stem. So it won't be long. But it did have a root on it before I got here. I got a little vicious with it, I guess, when I pulled it out the first time.
Let me ask you this. So what's the best way to water those, though?
I have not had to water them for a week because you get condensation inside this thing. And another thing, good point,
Uh-huh.
another thing, you keep them out of the sun, obviously, because you're going to bake them. You put them in a little shady kind of area of the garden, or I just keep them on the back steps of my patio, which is shaded. And so, you know, it'll, in just no time at all, this plant will transpire and this will start getting moisture all built up in it.
Okay.
And so I have not had to water it for a week. Now there may be a time that I will before it roots, but I mean, obviously you can see the soil and it's wet. So as long as it's wet, I don't worry about it.
Okay.
But there's another little way. If you don't travel and collect your shower caps, but if you drink soda pop,
Oh boy.
you know,
Yeah.
you can just cut one of these 2-liter soda. I don't know if that's the right one. I think this one went on this one. But, you know, you can get the clear bottles. You know, you got to pick your brand so that it's a clear bottle usually. I mean, you can get a green bottle, but, you know, I like the clear ones because I want to be able to see my plant, see what it's doing. So I cut the top off, and that's your little impromptu funnel you can use, you know, so you might want to keep that. And then this is your little greenhouse,
How about
and
that?
you just,
How about that?
you know, just basically stick it down, you know, and kind of twist it a little bit to make it a little airtight as you can. And then there's your little greenhouse. So it's really easy. It's not a big, you know, not a big
Seems
thing.
pretty
And then
easy.
when they root, oh, and here's my hibiscus.
Right.
So this was one of the hibiscus that I stuck in there, and I brought that from a neighbor. I don't have tropical hibiscus. Mine are hardy hibiscus. So I had to go over to the neighbor and you know, really kind of snuck over and took some cuttings. I was actually pruning. It needed pruning.
Okay.
But anyway, I took some cuttings. By the time I got back to the house, it had wilted. And I'm thinking, because it didn't have water or anything, so I'm thinking, man, I don't know if that'll make it. But I got it quickly, and I did my little greenhouse thing, and within a day, it had straightened up.
How about that?
So it was, and see, these are, and I had these on here till I got here, so see, you can see the
you can see
moisture
it, you
that's
sure can.
collected
You
in
sure
there. You know, that keeps it moist until the roots come out.
Right.
And then when it has rooted, then you can take it inside in the little pot, or you can repot it, or you can do whatever. But the trick is to put it, you know, in the right place in the house to get it through the winter, because it's not going to just grow like crazy, because, you know, it's not going to get exactly the right conditions probably, unless you've got a greenhouse you could put it in. You'd probably want to put it in a window that could get some really good, you know, early morning light or middle afternoon light. And it'll probably do just really, really, really well, you know, through the winter. And then you can take it out in the spring, and by the this time of year,
Right.
you can just do the cycle over again.
Yeah,
And
be looking like that, you know, like
yeah,
those over there for the
perpetuate
most
your,
part.
your favorite plants, you know. And if you've got some of these cultivars of some of these coleus, you know, you find one, and there was one called Arkansas Sunset several years ago that they quit having now, and it was absolutely gorgeous. It was like orange and yellow, and, you know, it looked like a sunset.
Right. I appreciate
And you
that's
can't
nice.
find it anymore. And I've had several people ask me, you know, where can we find it? So that's a way to keep the plants that, you know, that sometimes they discontinue to offer.
Okay.
You know, keep them going.
That's
Your
a good
heirlooms.
idea.
Yeah,
It sure is.
you know. So,
Doc, we appreciate that. That's good stuff, because if you like me, yeah, at the end of the season, it's like, oh man, I hate to take that out of the
Yeah, yeah.
ground because I can't take, you know, I can't bring it in the house.
yeah. And as
so that's a good way to
horticulture
do that.
people, we get asked that sometimes.
Sure.
I got this favorite plant, you know, and it's tender, and I don't have room for it
Right.
to drag it in. You know, what can I do to propagate it? You know, and
that
some of
does
them
it.
will even root in water, but I like to put them in soil
Okay.
because,
I think that's good.
yeah, just seems to work better for me.
All right, thanks for that good information.
Sure.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a cedar growing here in our O-gun. How did it get here? Maybe the wind deposited it here. Maybe a bird brought it here. Well, this is what you can do, if possible. See if you can dig it out. Get all of the root system that you possibly can. All right, just gonna work with it here a little bit. Might damage a little bit of the O-gun. Wow, look at that. Yeah, and if you have a big enough area in your backyard, guess what you can plant? This cedar. And look at that root system, still intact. All right, Joellen, it's our Q&A segment. You ready?
I'm ready.
These are great questions.
Yes.
Let's go with the first one.
Okay.
All right. I do like the way Italian arum looks. So shiny, rich looking with the white veins. I know it is invasive, but is there a way to contain it? If I were to use a root barrier, would it keep from spreading? Thank you, Diane from Webster, New York. So, Italian arrow.
Yes.
Didn't we talk about,
We just talked about
invasive
this.
plants here?
Yeah, and you know, it's just been recently that they've decided in the New York area that it is invasive.
So it is invasive
Yes.
in New York.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, if she looks at, it's not on the list yet. This is just thing because it's not on their state list yet.
Yet. Okay.
But it is in the New York area.
Okay.
The city area. And in fact, the New York Botanic Gardens did a paper on it, how invasive it is getting in their area.
How about that?
So yes, and I think both of those we could put both of those on the website for people to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would say no.
No?
No.
So don't worry about the root barrier or
Don't
anything like that.
worry
'Cause
about
it's
it because
invasive.
it's becoming invasive in the state of New York.
How about that? They are beautiful.
Yeah, they are pretty.
Right. And of course, they're spread by tubers and seed.
Yes.
So there we go.
There you
again,
go with
right?
the seed. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, we're sorry, Miss Diane. All right.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. But again, beautiful plant.
It is.
All right, here's our next viewer email. I have a whole bunch of 35-year-old Norway spruce. They started dropping their limb end tips by the hundreds. I tried researching it online, but found nothing explaining why. A new disease? Some type of pest? Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Bill from South Central Ohio. If you look at the picture, yeah, it kind of looks swollen.
Yeah,
Then?
the buds and
Yeah, the
stuff
buds
are a
look a little
little swollen.
What do you think may have caused that?
Well, you know, of all the plants that we've looked at over the years, the first thing I think of is some kind of insect
Right.
that would do something like that. And not necessarily a disease, but an insect would cause that kind of deformation.
Right. Something feeding on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you can go with some kind of systemic insecticide or some kind of sprayed insecticide on it, see if that helps. But I really, to get an absolute identification of it, if he could just take it to his local extension office
Yes.
for some positive ID on
Yeah.
it, because some of the bugs that get on spruces are microscopic. You need a
Right.
hand lens or something to look at
A
to
lot
see
of the
them.
mites, adelgids.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he would get confirmation of that, and so he might get you know, the exact recommendation of what the local area recommends he spray it with.
No, that's a good recommendation. Yeah, I would say that as well, because again, I do think it's something feeding.
I think yeah.
It's caused, you know, those buds to look like that, right? To look enlarged. So yeah, maybe an adelgid, mites, or something like that. But yeah, get a confirmation you know, from your local extension office. So I hope that helps you out, Mr. Bill. Thank you for the question and the picture. Here's our next viewer email. What is this beautiful plant? Its leaves are soft grayish green and the flowers are brilliant magenta. This is Victoria. What is that beautiful plant? Don't you know anything about that plant?
I have that plant, the Lychnus coronaria, rose campion. I have that, and it makes, I like it. I've used it as a ground cover because it's evergreen, the little part, but then the stems come up and they bloom. And then they form seed heads. Well, the little seed heads are like a cup. When they get ready, you can just tip them over and pour them out and collect seeds. And I just let it reseed itself because it seems to be kind of biannual. It takes about a year for them to start blooming again.
Okay, so biannual.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means?
Which means that it doesn't bloom the first year, but then it does the second year.
Okay.
And sometimes it dies that second year.
Sometimes
And
it
so
does,
sometimes it can come and go, but it will reseed itself if you let it.
And bloom time is?
It blooms probably in early summer,
Early summer.
and sometimes sporadically until it gets really, really hot outside.
Okay, so there you have it, Victoria. Beautiful plant. Yeah, I know Joellen has
like
that
it.
plant. She likes it. All right, here's our next viewer email. How can you kill morning glories? We made the mistake of planting them on our fence and they take over each summer. We can't have a garden or flower bed there because of them. Patricia in Lexington, Kentucky. So we're talking about killing or controlling morning glories.
Another aggressive weed.
Pretty aggressive.
You know, you can pull it, keep it pulled. You know, if you want to, keep it weed eated down, and that on the fence row, what you've got to do is either, when you're going to pull it, you've got to get rid of the carbohydrate reserve
You better
down
get
in
rid of all of those roots.
Oh my goodness,
Because
the
if you
roots.
do not,
Yeah.
it will come back more aggressively.
And if it's been there for a while, then it's getting really, the carbohydrate buildup in those root systems must be really good.
Must be, because yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they
it's
take
been there for
over
several years.
each summer.
Yeah.
So that tells you something. So yeah, if you're gonna pull it, you best get all of the root
Yeah.
system out. If not,
And that might be impossible to do.
might be impossible. Yeah, you can try to smother it out. That might be a little difficult.
Yeah.
Lastly,
you
can try to use, herbicide.
Herbicide, yeah.
You can use an herbicide, glyphosate, maybe a broadleaf weed killer as well. There's going to be multiple applications of that, but I would be careful, using that around your desirable plants.
Right.
Read and follow the label. But that is an option. So just be careful with that. But yeah, it's going to be tough.
It's an aggressive weed.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Patricia, have fun trying to get that out. Yeah, it's going to be pretty thick, pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that question. All right, Joellen, that was fun.
It
That's
was.
a good question. Thank you. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about invasive plants in your area or anything else we talked about today, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have information on these and hundreds of other gardening topics. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.